Hey guys. So I'm at the bar with the famous, more famous than me, Sal. Particularly, am I saying that correctly?
Mercagliano.
Bertagliano. My
You're
apologies.
fine.
Back in Ireland, we don't have words like that. So Sal and I were just at the War College, the Naval War College, and we had a great time. I mean, I had a great time. You
I
had
had a great time. It was really interesting. We were talking about China and the Chinese Navy, and I was talking about China Merchant Marine, and because I do shipping, that's my channel. Ryan does everything else. So
That's actually the one thing I don't do. Typically, when people ask me about stuff like that, I usually defer to Sal because he knows so much more than me.
and Ryan sent me one of his boat people shirts, so I got one of those.
Ah, that's right,
So,
Department of the Boat
so
People.
I get to wear one of that whenever I talk about boats and everything, because he's an Army guy, and Army guys don't do boats.
I do not do boat.
They don't. Cheers,
Don't know a
everybody.
darn. Cheers.
A little Bob L. Mendez for everybody.
All right. What are the questions you guys have here? Ryan needs to get out of my YouTube algorithm.
The first question we got is, who is Sal?
Well, you got
It's
Sal.
like, who's Sal? It's
So-
like, that was my favorite first question. Who's Sal?
Sal runs this website or this YouTube channel called "What's Going On with Shipping," which is probably the best the best YouTube channel on the planet when it comes to learning about like just the shipping industry. And there is so much to it.
It's a lot of shit.
Yeah, it's a lot of like I learned so much just tonight talking to them about like how when a ship goes on a journey or mission or whatever voyage, you bring like all the medical supplies you need, like antibiotics, and the ship's master has a key to the trunk locker. Everything's a locker on the ship, right? The ship's master has a key to the locker. It's like fascinating stuff. That's why you should subscribe to his channel because he knows so much more about this stuff than I ever will. In
You're
fact,
too kind, sir.
you know what's funny is like I've often said like I don't talk about stuff that I don't know about.
Smart move. I do the same thing. You don't go outside your wheelhouse.
I do not go outside my wheelhouse. I am trying to find where this. Oh, here it is. All right, there's a live stream. I'm going to try to actually paste this in, so that way you guys can like. But do you guys have any? If you have any question for, say big fan of both channels. So I have a question. Why does Russia want a naval base in the Med? I mean, in what case war would be struck by the European fleets, wouldn't it? You want to answer that?
They want a base in the Med because of what's happening literally right now is that every access the Russians have to the sea is blocked by someone. In the case of the Black Sea, it's the Turks. And so they always want to have a base in the Med so that they can stage their ships there because they got to rotate in. It's such a far voyage to come from the Baltic, from the Arctic, from the Pacific. They learned this in 1905 during the Battle of Tsushima. Sorry, I'm going to bring history into it.
Dude, knock it out.
I'm going to ruin it for you. So anyway, they've had one in Libya, they've had one in Syria, and now they're kicked out of their one in Syria, so now they're trying to set up the one in Libya. But it's all part of the Russians' influence. They want to be able to be out there in all those areas. Cheers. Good question.
That is fascinating. What else, you guys? Landing craft and floating docks. Remember the terrible floating dock idea off of Gaza?
Gaza Pier.
Okay.
Gaza Pier. Matter of fact, I just ran into someone. I had a call from one of the guys who was actually on that pier. Got some great information. I'm looking forward to it. There's a video I'm putting together where we're going to talk about that pier. Matter of fact, I'm going to go to a conference in June in Newport News at Christopher Newport University where they're talking about it. It was a cluster. It was a bad, not that the crews did anything wrong. They were sent into a bad scenario. And they really set them up. You know what they didn't do is, Ryan, they didn't listen to the sergeants. They didn't listen to the warrant officers. And they had a couple of officers tell them, we can do this. We can make this work. And it didn't work. If you listen to the people who actually do it, you'll do much better in life, whether it's military or commercial or anything.
I buy that. Like, I appreciate the shout out to the NCO Corps. Ryan, I I got accepted into a college today with a major in defense and strategic studies. How do you think the intelligence sector will change in the next 10 to 20 years? There's going to be a lot of AI, like just people who are. I think AI is going to change a lot of the ways that we deal with any kind of intelligence gathering and also making decisions, courses of action, developing your COAs. I hope the ladies at the bar. Someone said, "I hope the ladies at the bar do something." What says that? Will the U.S. eventually protect Russian shipping versus NATO?
Ooh, I think it's a question about why they would protect Russian shipping. Russians just came out with a notice that they want to build more ships. They're talking about a massive shipbuilding program. They want to increase the size of their commercial fleet. They want to build more Navy vessels. So, I mean, you just had an incident. I'm going to do a video about it probably when I get back home. The Estonians tried to stop a tanker going through the Baltic because the ship was part of the Russian Dark Fleet. This is the fleet of vessels operated by the Russians to carry their oil. But the ship was flagged in Gabon, but it wasn't really flagged in Gabon. It was literally an unflagged vessel. It was a pirate ship. It was it was literally no flag with it. But the Estonians tried to stop it. The Estonian border patrol had the ship stop, but then the Russians sent out a jet and actually scared off a Portugal F-16. The Portuguese they've got the NATO rotation right now over there, and they were able to get the tanker back through. The ship's not going to be able to go through until they fix the registration button.
That's fascinating. How does the container shipping industry impact the global economy? See, I told you you're more popular than me. Everyone wants to talk to you.
So give me
this happened at the conference. Everyone's like, "It's Sal," and I'm like, "Fuck you, Ryan."
Ryan was here last night. He sent me a note that there were guys here who knew me from last night. And I wasn't here with them last night. We just got back from dinner. So Containership. So a guy by the name of Malcolm McLean changed the way your life lives. He was a truck driver from North Carolina, right near where I live, Maxton, North Carolina. And he came up with the idea of Containership. And what has happened is, give you an idea, in 1950, we shipped 500 million tons of cargo around the world. Today, we haul 12 billion tons of cargo. So literally everything you get, mostly, comes by the water in some way. But we've made it cheaper and more affordable for it to ship that way. That's why the tariffs we just had put on changed shipping up so much, because it starts raising the price, makes things more expensive.
That's, the one thing I think of when you mention shipping containers. You guys ever watch that TV show, The Expanse?
Ooh,
in The Expanse, they had FedEx shipping containers. I thought that was pretty cool.
Just to be clear, the hero in The Expanse was a second mate. That's what I did. That's the hero. So
when Jones Act repeal?
Oh, why do you want to ruin everything by talking about the Jones Act? Why do you want to ruin that? We're having such a good time. What?
All right.
Yep, hang on a second.
So the bartender just said that she wants everyone to know that we're at Breakwater in, what do you call it, in Rhode Island.
Middletown?
Breakwater Cigar Lounge in Rhode Island. Middlebrook.
Middletown, Rhode Island. My apologies.
Thank you, man. So,
but anyway, Jones Act.
Yeah.
Jones Act is the law that basically says to move cargo between U.S. ports, you got to be on a U.S.-owned, U.S. flagged, U.S.-built, U.S. crewed ship. Needs to be reformed, doesn't need to be repealed. We need to change it. We need to modernize the law and make it more applicable to the way we do shipping today. Don't buy into the idea that foreign ships can do everything for you.
So let's say India versus Pakistan didn't agree to a ceasefire. I don't know. It doesn't sound like a question.
No. They want India and Pakistan to go at it. Who wins? Who wins?
Nobody wins, dude.
Nobody wins.
But, dude, the idea of winning a war these days is absurd. Everybody loses. It's a question of lose and lose less.
And remember, India and Pakistan have no hesitation about using nuclear weapons. They're not us. They're not the United States who's used nuclear weapons. It's not Russia. They see that as a means of winning, which is the scary thing, because back in, was it 98 when Pakistan popped off 5 of them, and then India popped off 5 of them, just to show that they had them.
Yeah, that was I was in the military at the time.
I remember that.
I was in the military at the time. Ryan Beth, is China using shipping? Oh, Ryan Beth, what do you think of BDR air-to-air kills India versus Pakistan with Chinese missiles? I'll tell you, I don't want to get too deep into Chinese missiles and Indian missiles, which is better, the Chinese, Indian, because you can talk about which is better all you want, but in reality, it's who has the better systems of systems.
I had this conversation today. We were talking about this.
And it looks like Pakistan had the better systems of systems when it comes to just people who are able, AWACS guys who can talk to the fighters. A Rafale might be a fantastic fighter plane, but if that Rafale isn't pointed in the right direction, it might as well not even be there.
That's been true of every time. I mean, every time you look at it, it doesn't matter if you have the best technology in the world. If you're not integrating it and know how to use it effectively, that's the key. It's how the British won the Battle of the Britain, because they were able to integrate their air defense together and make it work. They were outnumbered. They didn't have enough fighters. And if the Pakistanis can do that over the Indians can have the best gear in the world. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you have a better ISR, you're cooked. So what countries are the critical suppliers of ship manufacturing? How do they divvy up the major global geopolitical blocks? Oh, thank you for that money.
There's three of them. There's China, there's Korea, and there's Japan. They build 94% of all the world ships. China builds 51% last year. They're going to build 61% this year. So China's the big behemoth. So when you hear about, for example, wanting to put fees on Chinese ships coming in, it's because the Chinese are not just a dominant shipbuilding country, but they're doing something even scarier. They're doing something called vertical integration, where they're taking over all aspects of shipping from we were talking about today at the conference. They're building the ships, they're flagging the ships, they're crewing the ships, they're doing the repairs on the ships, they're doing all elements of the ships. They control the containers, they lease the containers, the trailers that drive our containers around are built and leased and owned by the Chinese. So they're controlling all aspects. That's the scary. That's how the Chinese are different than the British were when the British controlled shipping. The British controlled the ships. They didn't control all facets of it, which is the big difference.
Do either of you plan on doing an area of Peter Zion? I don't think I can walk that much, but
I don't think Peter wants to do one with me. If you've watched any of my videos, I've done Better Call Sal videos about Peter. It's usually Peter talking about something.
I've corrected Peter once or twice as well. And what's funny is that, I think he's good with the geopolitics thing. I don't know much about geopolitics, but I do know weapon systems. And, once in a while I've gone I don't know about that. But you know what? There's enough cake for everyone to eat. He's right more often than he's wrong.
I agree. Peter's got a good he's great for the macro picture, but he gets into the weeds a little bit. He gets a little bit off sometimes. And I'm a shipping wonk. I know the ins and outs of shipping. So every now and then he'll make some mistakes that I highlight him. I will say this, that Peter is very, very gracious. He doesn't really sit there. I think he takes the criticism very well. And so he'll talk. If you ever read his book, there's some really interesting ideas he has. I think he's a very unique person when it comes to looking at that. But again, when you're a generalist, you're going to make some mistakes.
Oh, Jay, by the way, thank you for the $5. This is a Partagas Black Label. Someone said Japan always does quote. Ryan, will India learn from this and reinvest accordingly? Maybe. One of the big problems with India is that India just they have a heck of a lot of good engineers in India, but I'll tell you something, like the Arjun, which was a tank, it was an absolute freaking failure. And I think some of it might be corruption, but today we heard a guy say that just because you're corrupt doesn't mean you can't execute a good strategy, right?
I would argue one of the problems that India will have is if they don't do well against Pakistan, India is seen as a threat to China in some ways, and China may not view them as much as a threat then as they are if Pakistan can demonstrate that they're able to handle India a lot better. Because one of the things the Chinese worry about a lot is the Indian Navy and the ability of the Indian Navy to shut down trade in the Indian Ocean. And if Pakistan is able to demonstrate that they can handle it, because it's a much smaller country, it doesn't have anywhere near the resources they have, I think that's a bad look for India. India is trying to become a big exporter. They're trying to get industry up and running. They want to build new ports. This could be really a negative thing for India's economy.
By that, yeah. Someone said Peter's bag is geography and demographics. Thanks for the $2 there. How many billions need to be spent to start being competitive again at shipping?
Wow,
Jesus, I don't know.
That's a good question right there.
You better learn how to weld.
You're going to need a lot. We avoided it for a long time. Remember, we built a great Navy. I mean, we built nuclear aircraft carriers, we built nuclear submarines. We just decided to do what we did in many industries is outsource it. Now you're talking about bringing it back. This is why I think we need to come up with an innovative approach to how to do shipbuilding. You can modular shipbuild. You don't have to build everything here. You can build parts of it overseas in Korea and Japan and bring the parts over and build it together, get your big Lego blocks. I mean, that's what they do with shipbuilding.
That's fascinating. I didn't know you could do that. Someone said to ship in and out of the Baltic, since you have to cross through either Swedish or Danish territorial waters, couldn't Sweden and Denmark close their waters to Russians?
So
that'd be an act of war, right?
Well, there's a big problem with that. You have to go through Danish waters. The Danish Straits are within all the confines of Denmark. However, there's a pesky little law called UNCLOS, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Article 19 says you have the right of innocent passage. You can't stop a ship from sailing through unless it meets several criteria. And one of the things that they've been doing is sitting there saying if a ship doesn't have insurance, if it's not properly registered, then they can stop it. But the problem is there's a lot of ships in the Baltic. It's about 2,500 ships on the daily in the Baltic, and about several hundred go through the Danish Straits every day. And the fear is that the Danes, the Swedes, the Estonians, any of the countries, the brand new Hanseatic League decide to stop the Russians, that could cause a lot of problems. You've got Kaliningrad down there on the Baltic. That's that Russian little oblast that's left over from when they divided up. And so it creates a lot of problems. And if you may remember the cable cutters, they were the cable cutters that went in. This is a big, big issue. The Russians want the access to the Baltic. And if the Danes and the Swedes cut it, that's going to cause a big backlash. This thing with Estonia is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Sorry, I can ramble on.
No,
Plus I'm
dude.
drinking. There's no telling here.
So, do you guys think the Chinese Navy will actually? Oh, thanks for $10. Someone sent me 20. Jesus.
Man, nice.
Well, paid my bar tab, right?
That's great.
At least for now. You guys think
buy another round?
I'll buy it. You want another?
No. I'm good right now.
Do you think the Chinese Navy will actually hold its own against the U.S.? Numbers are one thing, but out-perceived technology advantage would be enough.
So
you go first.
We were kind of talking about this today. They may not have the depth of experience that the United States has. However, the thing they have is they're building ships and they're pumping them out in a lot of measures. If you take the World War II analogy and superimpose it on today, U.S. Navy and the Chinese Navy are about on par, except for aircraft carriers. The U.S. has the advantage in aircraft carriers. Where the Chinese have the advantage, there was an Office of Naval Intelligence study that said that the Chinese have a 230 to 1 building advantage over the United States. 230 to 1. So that if they damage our ships, we can't repair them as fast as they can. And more importantly, if they want to pump out more ships, we can't pump them out the way we did. If you look at World War II, we fought the Japanese basically to a stalemate in 1942. What made us be able to win was our repair capacity and then building a whole fleet of new ships, which we're not doing.
Yeah, I kind of look at it from the standpoint of just last night I was here at the bar with a bunch of guys who are at the Surface Warfare School in at Newport. And I mentioned you guys can't reload your VLS tubes, your rocket tubes at sea. And they said, yeah, that doesn't matter though because there's not enough rockets to go in them.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, it'd be great. Thanks. Yeah, that's one of the big problems is you see those graphs done by all the time by congressional staffs and everything. You'll see it. And one of the things they'll put in there is like, listen, we have the X amount of VLS tubes. It doesn't matter if you're not making SM3s, SM6s, the standard missiles. And yeah, the U.S. has to go in and reload those, and we're doing those in the Red Sea right now. I won't say where we're going because there's a little bit of a reason about why we don't say where we go, but we do it in that region. But if you don't have enough, remember, we built those to deal with waves of backfire bombers shooting AS-4s and AS-6s, the Red Storm Rising scenario. Now the threat we have isn't backfire bombers and kitchen missiles, it's drones. It's a lot of them. It's big numbers.
Aircraft carriers versus helicopter carriers, which gives you more effect for the money?
Oh, thank you so much.
Probably depends on what you're doing, right? Like if you're doing what do you call it? Like operations other than war or DISCA, domestic support to civil authorities. Like you want helicopters to be able to fly in aid or something like that. And I've often said there's only 4.5 countries that can do expeditionary stuff. The U.S., the U.K., Russia, France, and to a lesser extent China, they have expeditionary capability. Now, some countries like the Netherlands, they might have one amphibious assault ship, and like if there's an earthquake in East Jabip, they'll send the amphibious assault ship there to help. And that's where a helicopter carrier gives you a lot of advantage. Technically, the Japanese. I was talking to some Japanese Navy guys Japanese Self-Defense Force Navy.
Maritime self-defense.
Yeah, Maritime Self-Defense Force. These guys were saying that, we don't have aircraft carriers. They're helicopter destroyers. They were very adamant about that.
Yeah. One of them's named Kaga. It's named for a carrier that attacked Pearl Harbor. It's a carrier. It carries F-35s. So, they're doing pretty good, the Japanese.
Very adamant that they had helicopter destroyers. Well, how long?
No. Carriers are a tough one because carriers give you a very unique advantage. Because number one, you can have a carrier. The Nimitz is what, 50 years old, and it's still modern because you change the airway. You can always change the airway, and more importantly, you can reload it at sea. That's the other thing about it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right about that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's one of the big advantages you have.
Now, let me ask you this. I know nobody asked this question, but why? So the Eisenhower lost 2 aircraft. 3, really.
3. Gettysburg shot down 1.
Gettysburg shot down 1, which Ward Carroll, you should watch Ward Carroll as well. There's enough cake for everyone to eat.
Ward's got a good one on that. I'm actually on all of them, but go ahead.
But, how is it that you lose a ship or you lose a plane over the side, but the captain doesn't get punished? I don't think they got punished for everything.
Well, I mean, they fired the previous captain for the collision that took place. I talked about that. I did a couple of videos on that on my channel where they had the collision on the Suez. The F-18 going off the deck, that's an interesting one because I found out from, I can't say who, but I found out that the ship was told to vacate the area very quickly because of a ballistic missile coming in. So they told them to get out of the area. So they gave the ship, hard rudder, and they proceeded to get out of there. The problem is usually before they do that, they'll tell everyone to lock and brace, get everything secured. They were just moving this F-18 onto the elevator when it went. What happened was once they gave the rudder over, the ship will lean, and that F-18 rolled. It was hooked to a cart, basically basically a tow truck, and the tow truck went over the side. The guy who was in it had jumped to get out of it. But I mean, it happens when you put the rudder over a hardened ship. You're going to lean it. It's going to list. And that's what happened. And then the other one was a landing incident, which usually happens once a deployment. We'll have a bad landing or something will happen, and so you usually trip maybe one plane. But the Trumans just had bad luck. I mean, 3 F-18s. That's a substantial lot.
I've said this before. Oh, thank you for the $5. I've said this before when it comes to Ryan. What's a girl from Waterbury from Think Tank? You mean Watertown? So Watertown. So this is an inside joke. I know that like my latest commercial for Bunker Branding talks about the girl from Watertown. Watertown is this post off of Fort Drum. All right, and it's back when I was there in 90s, 2000s. The women there were very unique. Very provincial, very bucolic, kind of very salt of the earth kind of people, and like you'd meet a girl working at the Dairy Queen and you fall in love with her and you get married. And that's kind of the joke about the girls from Watertown. Fayetteville, I'm sure, is the same thing. I was never at the 82nd, but Fayetteville is the same thing. Sal will say, Ryan, there's a long tradition of forward aviation ships, not aircraft carriers. I don't know what that is. Let's go Hurricanes.
Go Hurricanes.
Is that a team?
It's we're playing the Stanley Cup right now.
Oh, I'm not a hockey guy, dude.
I'm not a hockey guy either, but it's my North Carolina team, and so I like the Hurricanes.
I work at the Savannah Port and watch you both. What's crazy is that
you were talking about the dinner.
Like there was a woman at dinner who recognized Sal because her boyfriend's a longshoreman.
That waitress. We're literally we're finishing up dinner, and the waitress comes like, "Do you have a YouTube channel?" It's like it was very weird, very strange. I said, "Yeah, I do." She goes, "Is it about ships?" I said, "Yeah, it's about ships." And she's like, "Can I get a selfie?" Because her boyfriend was a longshoreman, And she went into a long explanation talking about the fact that he works containers.
Yeah.
And I tried to say, well, Ryan's got a YouTube channel, and she's like,
She doesn't give a damn about me.
She really did. She really did. It was kind of funny. Because Ryan has been making fun of this the whole time.
It's like he's famous, and I'm like nobody. It's been shown has it been shown the Chinese Navy will maintain their building tempo once their new ships start needing maintenance? Oh boy.
Well,
You answer that one. I gotta go to the bathroom.
You go ahead. So one of the things I'll tell you is Chinese ships are built for a very short period of time for a very good reason. So there was a incident with a U.S. ship off the coast of England called the Sten and Immaculate, got rammed. That vessel, I talked to the crew members on board. I know these guys. And so they told me, it's like, listen, this is a Chinese-built ship, and it took a really hard hit, but it's only designed to last for 15 years. And you can sit there and I could say the same thing. It's like, well, that's a piece of crap. It's like 15 years. I mean, U.S.-built ships last 30, 40 years. Chinese are building them only the last 15 years because they want to rebuild new ships. And so they put those ships out there for a short period of time. You got to replace them, and that creates a kind of a building frenzy. And so it creates a insured building requirement. So, yeah. Plus, I would argue that Chinese ships are built better now than they were 10, 20 years ago. You got to remember, about 1999, China was building 5% of the world's ships. Now they're building 51% of the world's ships. So they've gotten better.
I don't know that much about it, but I would assume as you build stuff and do iterations, the next thing that happens is you get better and better. You know, I don't know that much about the frigate. How do you say that word? Frigate? Frigate. I mean, I'm from Jersey. It's a frigate, right?
It's friggin' for Jersey.
Yeah, right. So when it comes to like I would imagine with something like a frigate, like the one we're trying to build in Wisconsin, that thing, like I don't know why we just don't build one. Just finish it. Just freaking finish the ship, and then the block 2 or the flight. They call them flights, right? Flight 2 becomes the one you really want,
because
right?
The Navy wants to build a ship where they don't have the plans done. It's like building a 2-story house and you've got the plans for like the upstairs bathroom done, but you haven't like done the first story yet. And it's like you need to have the entire ship done before you start building. It's a crazy idea. It's a nutty idea, but the Navy for some reason wants to start building ships before they have the plans done. And that's designed so that you're going to screw it up, have to scrap everything, and do it all over again.
I know nobody asked this, but tell me, why can't they just build the Fram? That's what they call it, right? The Fram? Frem.
So
I'm from Jersey. It's a Fram.
The irony of all this is that we are so good at learning lessons from ships. If you look at our history, I mean, one of the great stories in the U.S. Navy is U.S. ships that got hit and how we were able to save them. The Samuel B. Roberts, the Cole, you name it. And so we take every one of those lessons and we incorporate it into the next design. The problem you have is you build a ship that's so survivable, it takes a long time to friggin' build. And so that when you get a design from the French and the Italians, which is the Frem is, they don't have that. And so we would sit there and look at that design. It's like, oh, this is not good. We got to change this to make this better. And by the time you incorporate all those changes into it, you've changed 85% of the plan and you're not building the same ship you started out to build. So I agree. I think we should have just started building those early frigates, start building ships. And then while that's being built, we make the design change, build the new ones, and then you get rid of the old ones. Sell them, do whatever you want.
Why did we get rid of the Knox and the Oliver Hazard Perry?
Don't talk about the Oliver Hazard Perry. It's a criminal thing we did.
Really?
We shouldn't have gotten rid of that. We should have kept them going until the Navy does that. The Navy likes to get rid of things before the next ones are there. And it's mainly business. It's mainly overhead. It's more maintenance. They're expensive. Anyone got an old car? I got a 30-something-year-old Jeep, and I sink money into it every couple of weeks. It's like, why do I do it? Because I love the car. I love everything about it. But you know what? It's a money hole. It's just you keep throwing money into it, and that's the problem. And believe it or not, people like getting new things, and so they like new ships.
So someone said Chowder is the new captain. He is untouchable. I met Captain Chowder Hill when I was on the Eisenhower.
I'm jealous. Now I'm jealous.
I did a video with Captain Hill because I was on the Eisenhower for like 48 hours, and I got a chance to do a video with him, like a front-facing selfie video. And I said to him, how do you sign for a ship? Because in the Army, like when you become a commander, you have to sign for every single piece of equipment, every antenna, everything.
Awesome. I love Chowder.
How do you sign for a ship? And he's like, I have people that do it for me.
Yeah.
I have there's all these divisions, and they all.
I'll tell you what, he's the guy to watch because he was the fireman. He brought Eisenhower back in, brought it into the shipyard. Everything happened with Truman, the collision off Suez. And they could have pulled any captain out. They pulled him out because they know where he's at. He actually bucked the system for his social media. There was a lot of people who did not like his social media presence out there. And I would argue that Chowder Hill did it the best of anyone. He really showed how to do that.
My father, Captain Thomas P. Davis, retired, was a medical officer responsible for all medical care for the victims of the Cole terror attack. I would love to do a video on the Cole.
You need to talk. You need to get the captain, Kirk Leopold. I think that's his name.
We should do a video on that.
He did a great. I mean, first of all, the guy is the best motivational speaker I think I've ever heard. He's fantastic. But he talks about that. There was that story of the Cole and how they were able to save that ship.
They worked like crazy.
I love those kind of stories about saving ships. I mean, he was talking about the fact that literally he had to drill a hole in the side of the ship because he had to pump water out because they were flooding so much. To pump water, again, one of my other things, I'm a firefighter. I've been a firefighter for 25 years. Is pumping water straight up is really hard because you got to pump the weight of the water. And so you have to overcome what's called head pressure. I'll let you run with that image for a second. But you have to overcome the head pressure. And the problem was they were sinking so low. And as you sink in the water comes in at a greater velocity, more pressure. And so they could not pump the water up out of the ship fast enough. And so they had to take a chance, is drill a hole. They actually literally punched a hole in the side of the Cole and ran hose out. The problem with punching the hole is if you keep sinking, you're going to get water in. And so he made it was a huge gamble. It was a massive gamble.
Wow.
Can you pump the water out fast enough?
That sounds.
It's a great story. You should. He's captain. The captain is on that one, on the Samuel B. Roberts, on the Stark. All those guys were great.
Are ships armored?
Well, the Burkes, the Cole's a Burke, so they have some armor on them. Not like we would traditionally know, like thick armor, but they're protected in certain areas over like the engine rooms and over the magazines. They have a kind of a version of armor. It really isn't inches of armor, but it's like a form of Kevlar they use over it so that you prevent the shrapnel and things getting in. But the Cole was a suicide bombing. It was the first suicide bombing when you had that boat come alongside. It was it was a catastrophic hit. 17 killed on the Cole.
That's amazing. So Sue Wu Kong asks, is the American ship life cycle too short? Even though the military industrial complex is overrated, it's not a problem that there are so few corporations in there. Semper.
The ship cycle was built for like 30 to 40 years, and which seemed to be a good cycle to be in. You want the length. I mean, the aircraft carriers, the carrier that Chowder came off of Eisenhower's second oldest carrier. It's out there for 50 years. And some will argue that's too long, but at the same time, you can modernize it. You can really update everything. Every aircraft carrier comes in every 25 years for what's called an RCOH. It's a reactor core overhaul, something like that. It's a big, huge overhaul they go through where they refuel the nuclear reactor, but they actually just rebuild the entire ship.
Huh.
And it's a long time. It's actually like 3-4 years they do it.
It's funny. You can't see it. Our bartender is like really interested.
I think our
we're having to say.
Biggest fan right now and everything like that.
Any thoughts on the new Sukalo Chinese landing barge, the big ladder?
Oh, that's the. I did a whole video on the landing barges. Matter of fact, where we were at today, the Chinese Maritime Studies Institute (CMSI) has a booklet on that and everything. I need to plug that more. But what they designed were these new landing barges. So the Chinese built these barges. So envision like World War II landing craft, but this is on steroids. And they don't come up on the beach. Instead, they get close to the beach. They lower these big legs, these jack legs, into the ground. They literally lift the entire boat up out of the water. And then on the bow, they have these long ramps. On the stern, they have these ramps. And so you string them together, and you can actually bring large ships in, like roll-on, roll-off ships, ferries, lower the ramp, and you can just drive everything onto the beach. You can actually offload ships, massive ships, within a few hours.
That was all H.I. Sutton, I believe.
H.I. had been talking about that for a long, long time. He'd been looking at that. Tom Shugart over on Twitter, too, looking at that. If you want to find someone, Covert Shores on Twitter, really good one. He's got his webpage, Naval News, too. He does that.
Former Army logistics officer, how do you guys feel that we stand on naval logistics, both in terms of logging ships and the ability to support long-term, high-tempo ops far from home?
So I'll say two things on this. I'm sorry, I don't mean
No.
two things. We have the best logistics ships in the world when it comes to underway replenishment. If you look at our tankers, our oilers, our supply ship, best we have. We don't have enough of them. That's the problem. We don't have enough of them. Did a video when the Bighorn, one of our oilers, ran aground, and we left an entire battle group without an oiler. That was a big, huge problem. That was a massive problem. And then the other problem we have, my Army friend, is if we ever get into a deployment where we have to send him over and the rest of the Army over, we don't have enough conventional ships to do that. The ships we have right now are laid up in the reserve fleet, and they're on average about 45 to 50 years old. And if you're sending me and him into combat, we got trouble. We got trouble right there. It's just. I'm older than you. I can say this.
A little bit older than me. I like the idea of. I mean, I guess I would want a gun truck again, but nowadays, like you get into a gun truck, it's gonna get blown up by a drone. Did you
see the drone? Did you see the image of the Ukrainian guy got hit in the head with the drone?
I did not.
It didn't blow up. It was very good. It was like I mean, literally a suicide kind of drone on him, but it didn't.
What's up? Yeah. So our bartender has a question. Hold on, our bartender. You want to come around here and ask it so that everyone can see who you are?
Come around.
Our bartender is going to ask a question.
Once again, we're at the Breakwater
Cigar Lounge in Middleton,
Rhode Island.
So my question is, when they're designing these ships, how much are they taking into consideration for future upgrades for future technology?
Oh, can I be clear? That is a great question. That demonstrates to you the high level brow we're talking about at this place. So one of the things they love to do is plan that in, leave dead space, the capability to build. And one of the problems they've had is a lot of the ship designs they've done doesn't have that in there. So like the modern destroyer, the Arleigh Burke class destroyer, doesn't have room to grow anymore. And so that's why they talk about creating a whole new class of destroyers. Because the big issue on ships today is power. You got to generate so many kilowatts of power. Yeah. And if you don't have room to put more gas turbine engines or diesel engines in it, you can't fight modern warfare anymore. Because you need it for radars, for even lasers they're putting on ships right now.
So they do it now?
They're talking about building a whole new generation of ships. So they're building the Flight 3 Burke-class destroyers.
And in these new generations, will they take into consideration? So in the new generation of ships that they're building, will they take into consideration technology that we don't have yet?
They should, and this is one of the problems with the new frigate they're building. Because they've put so much into this frigate, there's no room to grow. So they're literally building a ship that has no room for development. And the question becomes, should you build a ship like that? Because you're basically at the max capacity for it. So when they built the Zumwalt class, that very funky, kind of very weird-looking destroyer, that ship had a lot of room to grow, and so that's one of the reasons they built that design. That's an excellent question.
That's a very good question, yeah. Ryan and Sal, who between you has the highest ranking sphere of influence when it comes to decision makers? Seems like Sal does.
No.
What what's funny is that
we're in different areas. We're in different areas.
We're in different fields. Like I do intel, but a lot of times when it comes to maritime stuff, I just don't know. Like I can talk about the Horn of Africa forever. I can talk about dropping bombs on the Houthis forever.
I avoid intelligence as much as I can on many levels. On many levels, I avoid intelligence.
Yeah. So someone just said the DDG 1000. That's a Zumwalt,
That's
right?
a wall, yeah.
That has a lot of power. Like I thought they were supposed to put railguns on it. All right.
So the Japanese have just introduced railguns. They have. And I had this very interesting conversation. You don't follow us on Twitter. You should really follow us on Twitter. We have some great conversations. But one of the things they talked about on Twitter was, the Japanese, because I said the same thing. It's like, Japanese have railguns. Why don't we have railguns? And they said, while the railguns are good, they don't have the barrel life. They wear out very quickly because of that. We had the same kind of design, but we realized that it just would not last very long. So you would not get the number of shots off that you needed. Remember, the big thing they're worried about are the swarm drones. That's the big issue right now. It's one of the reasons why everyone wants to comment about the 57 millimeter on the LCSs. Why are we going smaller in guns? Because of the rate of fire. You need a larger rate of fire to be able to get more lead in the air to deal with the swarm drones. It doesn't matter about the range. It matters about the amount you have out there. That's the Navy says that. Let me be clear. I don't understand 100% buy it, but that's what they say.
So let me ask this about the Zumwalt. Now, granted, I'm coming at this from an Army standpoint. Why can't you take an M109 howitzer, put it on the Zumwalt, boom, you have a gun?
I can be clear, 100% agree with that. It's a 155 millimeter gun that should have been commonality. It's for some strange reason the Navy likes to build what they like and the Army likes to build what they want. So you had twin 155s on the bow of Zumwalt, but they were designed for a specific type of ammunition that gave them extremely long range. I mean, extremely long range. We're talking like 155 miles, something like that. It was a really long range. But to me, I would have rather, because it came, the reason that you went from 3 Zumwalts down to from 32 to 3 is because the gun got so expensive. The ammunition got so expensive. I would have much rather put the Army 155 on there and you can run it. But again, the thing that's gotten them enticed right now is hypersonic weapons and hypersonic missiles.
All right, I buy that.
Hey, I'm gonna take a break for a minute. You carry on. I gotta take care of something. I'll be right back.
Don't ask me any maritime questions, guys.
Ask him all the maritime questions you want. He can handle it.
So I recently subbed to Sal because I was looking into merchant mariner industry. Cool crossover. Thank you, guys. Coast Guard did it right. I don't understand why you can't take a Legend class cutter and put some crap on it and say it's a frigate. But again, I'm thinking like an Army guy. I was on a Navy ship and I was like, how come you guys don't carry dirt around? That way you can dig a foxhole in case you come under fire, right? The bartender agrees. That sounds like a good idea. Someone said Constellation started 85% FRAM. Yeah, it looks like it's only 15% FRAM, and the rest is 85% homegrown. Yeah, I being at this naval conference. I learned so much, and I'm actually going to have a video on the PLA, the plan, the People's Liberation Army Navy, coming really, really soon now. It's just it's a lot of research, a lot of work to make sure it's done. And I have a guy that I paid. I paid him a little bit of money to help him research. Someone else here said the XM7 was a cool weapon in Battlefield 4. XM7 has some problems right now. Yeah, it seems like during some of this is something I can talk about, Army stuff. It seems like the XM7 program is just guys, they only carry 170 some rounds of ammunition. 180 rounds of ammunition for the XM7, and it's just not enough ammunition. Guys are running out when they're actually doing the assault. That is a huge freaking problem.
Oh, you're talking about the rifle?
Yeah, the new Army rifle. And the XM7 makes a lot of sense because with the XM7, you want to be able to penetrate. Our adversaries will wear body armor, and you want to be able to penetrate that body armor. However, I look at Ukraine, and what are the guys using in Ukraine? AKs and M4s or M16s that have been some variant of the M16. They seem to be penetrating body armor just fine when they're fighting gun to gun, but they're fighting drone to drone.
I think Cappy's got a new video out on that. I haven't watched it yet.
I haven't watched. Yeah, you guys should watch Chris Cappy as well. Yeah, there's a big difference between 308 and 556. Could Donald Trump's dislike for electromagnetic catapults on aircraft carriers have any influence on design decisions?
So his distaste for those was on the Ford. So one of the things the U.S. Navy did is they built an entire new class of aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford. And Ford isn't just a new design. I mean, everything on it was different. And so they put in these electromagnetic catapults. And the problem is when you put everything brand new, I don't just mean new, I mean new technology. Yeah. There's a time of breaking it in. And the problem with the Ford was everything was new on it. And so everything went wrong at the same time. And so you literally had a ship that was brand new, and it took almost 10 years to get it out for deployment. And what they should have done, and again, but this is worth 2 cents here, is I would have, started integrating some of this in some of the older platforms first, but the Navy likes to do everything brand new. And so what we had was Ford's heading out for her second deployment. She's going to relieve Truman out there on her second deployment, only her second deployment in 10 years. And then the new carrier coming in behind her, the Kennedy, is taking almost 10 years to build. because they had to strip everything off Kennedy to build this. And so I understand President Trump's thing, but I understand the Ford is a much better platform in terms of air launches. It can actually run more aircraft through the air on a daily basis than the Nimitz can. It is a much better when it's working. when it's working right, it's great.
We'll figure that out. It was no different than the Bradley. Like the Bradley started out as a boondoggle, and now you can't get enough of them.
No, and everybody wants them.
Well, someone asked, does the Navy need the Marine Corps? Why shouldn't they be separate branches? I mean,
that's a good question.
It's a good question. I got to tell you, I am a huge fan of the Marines. It's almost like they I don't want to say they need to feel special. Every once in a while, someone comes along and says, oh, the Marines should actually be under the Army, and we'll make them their own corps, like the 18th Airborne Corps. And, the Marines are working just fine the way they are.
I will give you the story that if you're not following, you should follow. But the first Sea Lord of the Royal Navy just got fired, just got relieved because of a sexual he got wrapped up with having sex with a subordinate. He was replaced. The first time Sea Lord in 320 years, Royal Marine. Royal Marine.
Do you want another drink?
I will always have another drink.
Can he have another Jack Daniels?
But I do think the Marines and the Navy have a very unique relationship together because Marines used to guard ships. They were that element. They're the land projection force. So, and Marines operate a little bit different than the Army. I mean, they have that integrated, Marine air ground task force. Every Marine is a rifleman, even the aviators. So it's a little bit different.
Love both you guys. Sal, any advice for my MUG cruise on the Empire State VII?
Mug cruise. So Mug is a maritime undergraduate student. So I'm a graduate of the State University of New York Maritime College. And every summer we went out on the Empire State. I went out on Empire State 5 because I am ridiculously old. They're out on Empire State 7. It's a great ship. I would tell you, as much as I'm not a big fan of the Maritime College, me and Maritime College didn't get along very well. But I will tell you this: the best thing you'll get out of that education, number one, is knowing how to be a sailor and getting all that experience, getting the degree, getting the license. But the guys and girls you sail with will be your friends forever. They're what makes me smart is not me. It is the fact that I can tap into a database and information base of an alumni from that school. It is the best thing in the world. It is a mafia of people that you get to know. So go enjoy your cruise. You're heading to New Orleans. You're gonna have a good cruise, and then you're heading across to Europe.
That's pretty cool, man.
It's awesome. I spend my summers on ships. It was really, really cool.
AI submersible drones and underwater sensor networks are the next big thing. Subs, boats, and ships will have no chance. What do you think?
We were talking about that today. I was discussing on a panel today, and one of the themes was underwater research being done by the Chinese. And so they're using underwater drones, underwater surveillance. It is the big thing. I mean, I got a master's degree in maritime history and nautical archaeology. When I did my degree, we were towing sensors off the stern. You were jumping in the water. Now you're using ROVs, what called UAVs, unmanned autonomous vehicles. You can do surveys now by dropping basically a torpedo-like device into the water, and they'll troll up and down, follow a track line, mow the grass, and you get all the sensor data you want. What Ryan was talking about with AI, it's applying to every field right now, and especially in the maritime sector. I think we're going to see more AI in shipping coming forward than ever before. I don't think we quite go autonomous on shipping. We don't get all the crews off, especially on commercial ships, because no one's going to insure a ship with no crew on board. They're just not.
That's actually a really good point. I guess a lot of it's insurance, right?
Oh, shipping is all insurance. It is all insurance, and understand. If you want to, the guys who make money in shipping is insurance companies. It's dull, it's boring, but man, they make the money. If you look at the war risk right now because of the Houthi, the companies that make the money are the guys putting war risk insurance.
Like Lloyd's of London has their own flag, right? Like people throw up the Lloyd's of London flag.
So just we're in a bar. Lloyd's was a bar. It started off as a bar in 1666. People would come. It was a bar. It was coffee. It was drinks. And what they would do is they had a big, huge board up there, and you would bet on whether or not ships came in. And if you were a ship owner, Ryan, I'll ask this to you. If you're a ship owner, do you bet your ship comes in or do you bet your ship doesn't come in?
You bet your ship comes in, right?
don't. You bet your ship doesn't come in. You know why you don't bet your ship comes in?
Why?
Because if your ship comes in, you make all that money off the ship. If your ship doesn't come in,
Oh.
you need money. You need that little bit of money to get it started again, Ryan.
Wow.
So what you do is you bet against your ship. Think about insurance. What do you do every day? You pay insurance every day, betting you're going to get in an accident. You don't. That's what you bet. That's why this is why 70-year-olds, so you 70-year-olds right there, cause accidents because they realize they've been paying insurance for years driving and they want to make their money. They're just going to drive into you because they realize they've been losing out all those years.
Matt Hemming asks, "Good evening, gents. Any thoughts on Andor?" You watch Andor?
I'm going to tell you something. I don't want to lose. I talked about Ryan earlier about this. I don't get politics on YouTube, but I will say this. I'm a Star Trek guy. I'm not the hugest Star Wars guy. Although I did watch first season of Andor, and it was pretty good. And I will say that Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie, hands down. I don't care what anybody says.
I like Rogue One. I kind of like how everyone died at the end, right? Like that's probably what would happen. But I watched the first season of Andor. And I thought it was amazing. I'm not a Star Wars fan. Funny thing about Star Trek. So years ago, my brother, he's a big Star Trek fan. He's a year older than me. And I think I was home on leave or something. And my brother was like, "Hey, do you want to go see Star Trek First Contact?"
Ooh.
And I was like, "I don't know, man. Like, I haven't seen the other Star Trek movies." He's like, "Oh, no, you don't need to see it." Like, I don't know. I'm not that into Star Trek. He's like, "There'll be girls there." I'm like, "There'll be girls there?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "All right, well, I'll go." Oh, there were girls there. They were wearing, like, Vulcan ears and freaking, like, dressed up. It was like the first night it came out.
Star Wars, the Trade Federation, the best part of the whole Star Wars. It's the best part. Trade and commerce is great. It's fantastic.
Someone said bourbon or scotch. Well, this is bourbon. I'm not too much of a. I like rye whiskey. I like the rye whiskey.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Jack Daniels. I just go with Jack Daniels.
Thank you, Kim G. You got all these like Asian names following us. They know where I'm at. Hopefully you're Taiwanese, right? Just tell me you're from Taiwan.
I don't think anybody's enjoying this at all.
Season 2 of Andor is incredible. I watched the first 3 episodes of the season 3 of Andor, and I'm like, this is like watching The Mandalorian. There's like a rave party and stuff like that. Like, come on, man. What is the role of merchant marines in wartime?
Wow, good question. So, merchant mariners sail commercial ships.
I'm going to use the bathroom.
You go ahead. We're getting ready to ride for a minute. So, merchant mariners sail ships during peace and war. And during World War II, U.S. merchant mariners sailed ships that went from everywhere you could possibly imagine. And so they are not in the military, they're civilians, but they do sail ships for the U.S. government. So, for example, during World War II, 1 out of 26 merchant mariners died hauling ships. Roughly about, in the U.S. Merchant Marines, 733 ships were sunk, almost 9,500 merchant mariners killed. Give you a little tidbit of information here, a little nugget of information you may not know. Of all the federal academies, the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy is the only one allowed to fly a battle standard because 142 of its midshipmen died during World War II. They sailed on vessels of the U.S. Merchant Marine. So merchant mariners are like pilots. They're like FAA pilots. They sail for commercial companies, but in time of war, they can be nationalized. In World War I, we nationalized the Merchant Marine. In World War II, we nationalized the Merchant Marine. And I sailed as a merchant mariner during the first Persian Gulf War. I was a third mate on a hospital ship, the Comfort, where I met my wife. I told Ryan the story earlier today.
It's a good story. I never thought about that. It's a fascinating life, especially like I think one of the neat parts about Sal's channel is that you get to learn about things that you would never even think about, right? Like how merchant mariners work. Like it's just a life that just is just beyond what I can even imagine.
So Ryan and I had a conversation today. We're talking about it, and we realized that one of the things we like to do is talk about areas that a lot of people don't know much about. And so I encourage other people to do that too. I think everyone has a knowledge for things. I talk about ship. Ryan does intelligence. We get the chance to talk about areas that we delve in a lot and know people a lot. That's really one of the big things.
Someone said, in what area in defense are we overlooking or not paying enough attention to right now? for me,
I saw
without a
it.
doubt,
Yes.
information warfare.
Yeah.
Information warfare scares the living daylights out of me, mainly because, when someone said, Ryan, don't get it twisted, my name may be sound Chinese, but I'm American AF. Thank you, man. The idea that when China invades Taiwan, which will probably happen 2027, 2028, well, we're gonna see an information warfare push. We're gonna see China do things like they're gonna post videos saying we're not invading Taiwan. What are you talking about? Look at these pictures of the beaches in Taiwan. People are on the beach. Our newest carrier is still in dry dock. They're going to show these things, and it's going to be a lie. And we're going to know they invaded Taiwan when the chips stop coming 14 days later, or however long it takes. But there's people in the U.S. Congress who will repeat that stuff either because they hate the military-industrial complex, or because, and this is scary, because they think it'll give them likes. And the idea of supporting something because it might give you likes scares the living daylights out of me. But it is a reality. So I think that we're not really focusing on information warfare, and that's a big thing for me. And I got to tell you, the idea of trying to fight with American citizens, like blocking ships leaving port or blocking army bases so convoys can't leave because China is using TikTok and saying America is only trying to help Taiwan because they want their resources. They're imperialist, capitalist, whatever, and the Taiwanese people really do want to be reunited with China. That's what's scary to me. Look
at what the Houthi are doing. I talk about the Houthi a lot on my channel because obviously they're interdicting a huge amount of trade. But the Houthi are many things. Let me be clear. They launched an attack against shipping. They've been able to sink 2 ships, seize 1, kill 4 merchant mariners. But in total, they hit maybe 24 ships. It's not a huge thing. But in terms of information warfare, they win the game. They win the game every time. Because every time an American aircraft carrier leaves the area, they say they defeated it. They pushed it out. And, it's clear they're not doing that. But in terms of information warfare, it's good. We used to call it propaganda. And understand, propaganda didn't have a negative word for it. In World War I, the entire U.S. government had an entire agency that was devoted to sell Americans on why we entered World War I. It was called the 4-Minute Men. They would go to theaters. They would give a 4-minute speech before the movie. They would tell you what was going on. And they will try to do this again and again. And some of these countries are really, really good at it. And they know how to use the asset we're using right now. Media like this, social media, they understand how to do it.
Yeah. Someone said, is the Navy like the HV-22? I guess that's the Osprey for carrier onboard delivery. I don't know.
Well, they like the V-22. The problem with the V-22 is it's a new technology, so it has problems. And so what we saw was the V-22 had a significant problem. They had accidents, and we had to go back to using the old C2s. Tilt rotors are the way of the future, but every new technology has its problems, and it's never clean when we use it. And so it created a big problem in that we were phasing out the old, what they call CODs, the carrier onboard delivery, the ship that brings cargo and personnel. And so we had to shift back to the old one. Our buddy Chowder Hill flew basically versions of the COD, the E2s, the search planes.
So someone said, are you on a laptop or a phone? I'm on my laptop. I have my laptop in the car. I always travel with like my podcasting kit. Because a lot, like I was on CNN yesterday. I was on CNN. So I never know when I'm going to get someone say, hey, Ryan, come on TV. And, I can just pop that. And I have a studio wherever I go.
He's much better than I did. I did a video from my hotel room the other day, and my audio was crap because I didn't bring my mics with me. He's got a nice mic. I like the mic.
Dude, get the Rode mic. Get the Rode AI Micro.
I got to do this. This is what I'm learning lessons. Ryan's my guru when it comes to this.
Do you want to get back to the hotel, or do you want me to have another cigar? What do you want to do?
I'm good for right now.
You're good for now? Because I might have another cigar if that's okay.
That's fine.
All right. We might continue this for a little while. We have like 800 some people on right now.
What is wrong with you people?
Do you
have anything else to do?
I don't know. So someone just said, have either of you read McFate? He writes a lot about stuff that you guys are talking about. Coin Scholar, worked with Petraeus. McFate?
McFate. I mean, Petraeus obviously is I mean, everyone knows Petraeus. I mean, he has a big thing. I don't know if you're talking about the Graven, the special
Petraeus
forces.
was a brilliant, I wish I could.
He just couldn't keep his.
I wish
pants.
I wish I could drop nuggets of wisdom like Petraeus and then go home and bang my incredibly hot mistress.
Real quick, Petraeus. Can I give you my quick Petraeus story? I actually had an opportunity to teach at the U.S. Military Academy for a year, 05 to 06. It was great. I loved it. I had an opportunity to teach it at the Military Academy. If you ever get an opportunity to teach at the Military Academy, go do it. I had so much fun. It's not. The fact that they pay those professors is a criminal thing because I had more fun. They shouldn't have paid me for what I did.
I didn't know that. You taught at the West Point.
It was fantastic. I had an opportunity to do it. I actually the officer that was teaching there got deployed over to Iraq, so it was a last minute deployment. And so I was, of all things, I had just finished my PhD. I was working as a full-time firefighter, and I'll never forget my interview. My interview was at the firehouse, and I was just like, please God, something don't burn right now, because I was in the middle of my interview. And I was like, if I got to run out in this interview, they'll never understand it, because it was a phone interview. And I got the job. It's like, hey, can you be here like next week? And it's like, so I was up in West Point, and I loved it. I loved it so much because you got to do everything. I got to be the assistant coach for the crew team.
You got a cutter?
And so I had a great time because every professor at West Point, I know there's a lot of criticism about a recent professor at West Point, but every professor at West Point has to do something beyond teach. You have to go do something. So they want you to run a club, do something. So I was like, well, what can I do? And one of my friends was a crew coach there. He said, well, come out and be the assistant crew coach. I said, I don't know how to crew. I've never crewed. He goes, well, you were on a boat. It's like, I didn't row it. I never rowed the boat. It was like a big boat with steam and diesels. He goes, no, come out. You have a fun time. So I went out. But my Petraeus story is, Petraeus had come back from Iraq. He was a 3-star. And the thing I loved about West Point is you'd get these emails from the faculty like, hey, this person's coming on campus, wants to talk. And I went to a meeting with Petraeus where we were literally in like a conference room. It was like 12 of us. And in comes Petraeus and gives a talk about his time in Iraq. It was the best conversation I've ever had. McMaster came in shortly after he commanded 3rd ACR. He had actually been a professor at West Point. I actually had his refrigerator. There was a refrigerator that was in my office that had H.R. McMaster's name on the side. It was his refrigerator. So it was like the H.R. McMaster Memorial refrigerator. It was a joke, but it was very funny.
That is, I didn't know that. What did you teach at West Point?
I did the art of military history. Every senior at West Point has, at the time, I had to take a two semester, now it's one, 2-semester history course in the history of the military history in the Army. And so I taught the seniors. It was great. I taught at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. I was done by 10. It was the best job in the world. I was done by 10 o'clock every day. It was great.
Really neat. I wanted to do a video of the West Point football team because apparently they do their own logistics.
They do.
They, like cadets, move how do you move all that football gear to a stadium, unpack it, repack it, clean it, bring it back? Like that just sounds fascinating to me.
My favorite tidbit about West Point is Fort Arnold. If you don't know, it's Fort Arnold. But it's not named Fort Arnold because Arnold is Benedict Arnold. So it was always Fort Arnold. There's like one spot near the chapel where it's still engraved in the rocks, Fort Arnold.
Huh.
But it's not. So West Point, if you ever get a chance to visit, go take the tour of West Point. Yeah. It is beautiful on the Hudson. It is one of the most picturesque. And every nice picture you ever seen are taking one day in July. And because the rest of the time it's snowing. It's miserable. It's miserable there the rest of the time.
What do you think the outcomes of the current negotiations with Iran will be, especially since Israel seems to feel sidelined at the moment? Boy, that's a good question. I'm actually a huge fan of nuclear power. I would love to go build Iran 6 nuclear reactors, as long as they're Westinghouse reactors and we supply the fuel. Look, there's only one reason Iran is building weapons, right? There's only one reason why they're enriching uranium. It's to make a bomb, right? Let's kind of get real about that. And the longer we can dissuade them from doing that, but encourage them toward peaceful atomic projects, that's the ideal situation. What do you think?
I'm a history professor. I always talk about the idea that I educate, not indoctrinate. And one of the things I said is the toughest thing you have to do is take yourselves out of the view you have and put yourself in other people's view. The United States is the only power on the planet that has used a nuclear weapon twice. And, we don't want Iran to have it for obvious reasons. Yet we have an arsenal of 3,000 nuclear weapons. And I don't want them to have it because we know the fear that nuclear weapon causes. It's really a horrendous weapon. It really is. Especially when you get up from an atomic to a hydrogen weapon. It's monstrous and everything. I do think, however, that one of the things that President Trump has done, and I talk about this on my channel a lot because of the tariffs and everything else like that, is President Trump uses economic warfare to cause geopolitical results. And he's put a lot of sanctions against Iran on the shipments of oil. I think he's using that as a tool to get Iran to back away from nuclear weapons. I agree with Ryan that we would love to put nuclear power into Iran. I think that's something that we would do. Trying to shine, because if you're Iran, think about this for a second. I always use this scenario when I teach my class. I put it up on the map. Just think about this for a second. If you're Iran, to the east is India. That's a Hindu nuclear bomb. India has a nuclear bomb. To the north is Russia. It's an Orthodox nuclear bomb. To the west is Israel. Israel has the atomic bomb. We know that because we gave it to them. So it's a Jewish bomb. And then in the Persian Gulf is the United States. We have bombed. They're surrounded by countries that have nuclear weapons. And again, what's the measurement for world power? Look what happened to Ukraine. Ukraine had nuclear weapons. Gave them away in 94 with the guarantee that Russia would never invade them. They invaded them. And so, why wouldn't you want a nuclear bomb? Because it puts you onto the world stage. Look at the 5 powers up on the Security Council that have the veto power. All nuclear powers.
Yeah, the scary part to me is if Iran develops a nuclear weapon, the Saudis are going to develop a nuclear weapon with Egyptian engineers.
Right. And let's not forget, the South Africans had the nuclear bomb. They backed away from it at the time. And then what happens with Korea, Japan, with North Korea, Japan, Korea, it creates a tidal wave of problems. And again, not everyone has our view not to use the atomic bomb. If you've never been to Hiroshima, ever been to Japan? You ever been there?
No.
So I've been to Hiroshima. If you ever go to Hiroshima and you go to that city, you go on the bridge where the atomic bomb is dropped, and number one, you see that building, the one stone building that's there with the clock frozen at the exact moment.
Like a church or something, right?
It was a state. It was a school. It was a state building of some kind. But on the bridge, the bomb blew up 1,700 feet above the bridge. You can still see the shadows of the people who are walking on the bridge because for the nanosecond before they died, their shadows were cast on the bridge. It's absolutely spooky. One of the spookiest places I've ever been.
Now, someone said West Star Army said when I was in the Army, I flew CH-47s around the Statue of Liberty and over West Point.
Oh, cool.
Talk about Freedom Bittner. I don't know what that is. I also got to fly in a UH-60 over Mount Rushmore. I was supposed to do a video with the guys who do UH-60 rescues. It's the only Army Reserve unit that does like rescues in a national park in Mount Rainier.
Really?
And that just never happened. Like for whatever reason.
I love the Coast Guard rescue guys. I mean, the search and rescue guys. Search and rescue are, without a doubt, I think some of the absolute coolest men and women who do that. I mean, jumping into the craziest stuff. It's nuts.
Based on, so this is Miles David says, based on both of your experience and expertise, do you think China will come to dominate the United States economically and militarily? Boy, that's a good question. I think in a lot of ways China does dominate economically. If you get me started talking about brushless motors, I can talk about brushless motors for a half hour. But for the longest time, if you were an executive at a company, right? If you weren't manufacturing in China, you would get fired. Right? Because why are you not manufacturing in China? It's cheaper, it's whatever. And we kind of sold our souls for $400 TVs. I remember during the pandemic, I was shocked. Why can't we make masks? We got one company, we got 3M, and one company that can manufacture masks.
I mean, but you raise the global economy. I mean, it comes up. I mean, if you look at the standard of living, I mean, transportation did this. I mean, that was the part about globalization that we sold ourselves. Like, hey, we're going to raise the standard of living. Everyone's going to be increasing up.
But we thought that by raising China's standard of living, they would become more democratic, and that didn't happen.
I will say this: U.S. If you look at the U.S. GDP, it's about a quarter of the world's economy, and China is not that. China's number 2, but China's got 1.4 billion people they got to deal with. And if you look at the numbers, and I talk about this on my channel all the time, China exports. We export 14. Sorry, I keep getting my mic. 14% of Chinese exports come to us. The next closest country is like South Korea, 2%. But meanwhile, 40% of our imports come in from China. And I actually think that one of the reasons President Trump did the tariffs, and it's very controversial, I understand that, and I'm not saying yay or nay to the tariffs, but one of the things it did is we have talked for a long time about what happens if China cuts us off from Chinese trade. Well, we cut ourselves off from Chinese trade for a brief period of time. And I think we demonstrated, listen, we need each other, and that's the thing. And I think China found out they needed us a little bit more because their economy suffered quite a lot. And don't get me wrong, we suffered a lot here. But I think that's an interesting element. I don't think that maybe we start weeding ourselves off that. I mean, look at what happened with Russia-Ukraine when Russian oil was going to Europe.
There's some water.
Everybody was talking about the problem with Russia having with with the Russian oil. And so they got themselves off of it a little bit, but it took Russia-Ukraine to get them off of it.
We told Europe. It's actually when Pete Hegseth went into Europe and basically told Europe that the free ride is over. He wasn't wrong.
I love the idea of Pete Hegseth going into Europe. Pete invaded Europe.
Yeah, I don't entirely agree with what Secretary Hegseth, how he said it, but he wasn't wrong in the sense that we have been carrying Europe for a while, and when I look at God, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. I don't want to make anybody bad.
I don't want to piss off Florida.
I can get you other Jack Daniels. All right, we'll get you other Jack Daniels. But I guess I look at Europe and I think man, you guys, they're finally kind of starting to get their act together.
Well, I think it's important to note. So one of the things post World War II is, U.S. had tariffs for a long time. I mean, the tariffs aren't new. If you look at the history of the United States and tariffs, we've had tariffs for a long time. I mean, literally, the tariff of abomination almost caused the Civil War in 1832 in South Carolina. We've had tariffs forever. But one of the things we did post World War II is we repealed the tariff. We took it off. We literally told the rest of the world, charge us any tariff you want. You can make our goods more expensive. Because what we want to do is promote that. We were the most selfless victors at the end of World War II. And I know Americans get hammered all the time, and I understand why we get hammered. Believe me, I do. But we sat there and said, listen, we were the United States. We were exporting 63% of the world's goods. We were in a position of commanding dominance, and we gave up on it. We literally gave it away. And with that, eventually becomes the World Trade Organization, we lowered tariffs. Put tariffs on us, we're not going to put tariff on you because we want you to rebuild. But 1970s, 1980s, 1990s roll around, and now the world is a much different place. And I think that's the realization. And maybe President Trump isn't the best at communicating that at times. I don't think most of us understand the history of it. And again, I'm a historian. I love talking about this stuff. I can talk about it all day long. That's why Ryan doesn't want me on the channel with him all the time.
How can I make a buck in shipping? What's new? How can you make a buck in shipping?
You can make a buck in shipping. So unfortunately, I can be clear.
I'll use the bathroom while you're talking about this.
Go ahead. So you can make a buck in shipping. So you just got to know where to invest. You need to know where and invest. So unfortunately, one of the problems in shipping is there's not a lot of investment opportunities in shipping. Most of the large shipping companies are family owned, believe it or not. I've joked with my wife for a long time that I will divorce her in a second if I could marry someone named Aponte, because they are from the wealthiest shipping family in the world, Mediterranean Shipping Company, big, huge firm. Same thing with Sade over at CMA CGM. If you want to look at shipping stocks, look at Matson, look at Zim right now. Those are two container liners. Big uptick right now. we're seeing a big uptick right now in shipping. There's a lot. In fact, I'm talking with a company about going in and maybe having them on my channel a little bit more frequently, talking about commercial shipping and some investment opportunities. But the big thing is understanding that global shipping has a lot to do with the market. And in many ways, it's a leading indicator of it and how things go. All right, Ryan's not here. I got to cover for him while he's gone. And I need my glasses so I can see here. So let's see what we got. So we got how we can make a buck in shipping. We got that. Let's see what else we got here. Feel free to chime in with questions. Let's see what we got here. Some questions here. Brian is the world's smallest bladder. He does, doesn't he? I kind of agree. You just got called out for having the world's smallest bladder.
I do.
I
have a bladder the size of a freaking walnut. At my age, my prostate is.
Well, let's not go on this. It's a whole different channel. If we're going to go into that. It's a different channel. I'm not sure I want to be here for that channel.
I have people who think that I'm 30. They think that until they see the back of my head, right? But yeah, I do. I swear to, I do have the world's smallest bladder. It is the real.
I want to say this real quick. I walked into the conference yesterday and Ryan was there. It was like weird to see Ryan. I've seen Ryan like you all on TV, like on the video all the time. And so to see him sitting there was a little bit of a shock. I didn't expect to see you there. We hadn't talked about this, and all of a sudden we kind of ran into each other.
Yeah, I had no idea you were going.
I didn't know you were coming either. So one of those weird things.
I was shocked I was invited. In all honesty.
And I want to take a moment here while we're on here with everybody. Thank Ryan. Ryan has invited me on his show many times. He's been very good to plug me. I appreciate it. You're a very nice guy. You are a magnanimous YouTuber.
A lot of it is, I believe there's enough cake for everyone to eat, right? So, I don't see why, if I don't know something, I shouldn't talk to you.
I agree.
Or
I agree. I said people to your channel. I said people to many channels. It's like, well, listen, you need to go listen to these guys. And I think, one of the things that I hope you all want from us is talk about stuff we know. And if we don't know it, don't talk about it. It's like, listen, I tell people all the time, I'm wrong or I don't know this. And I think that's a big selling point for us. To be like within our lane.
I definitely try to stay within my wheelhouse. So is the Cape of Good Hope of future strategic importance? The channel in Egypt is rather narrow.
It's a choke point. It's a big choke point, even though it's wide open. And if you've never been around the Cape of Good Hope, I sailed around the Cape of Good Hope. It is a rough spot. So if you ever want to go on the roughest ocean in the world, everybody who sails the Antarctic is asking for trouble. If you sail to the Antarctic, if you take one of those Antarctic cruises, be prepared to get beat up a lot. Because the Southern Ocean, there is a Southern Ocean. There's the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, and Southern. The Southern Ocean is unique because it is the only ocean on the planet that goes completely circumnavigates the entire planet. So what you get is the biggest rolling ocean you've ever seen. It is massive. And so when you make that trek around it, it's pretty rough. Now, Cape of Good Hope, really interesting. South Africans found themselves in a very advantageous position because of the Houthi. The problem the South Africans have is they don't have the fuel to refuel ships. But you have like Chinese coming out. The Chinese just in Hamburg in October last year unveiled plans for a new container ship bigger than anything you've ever seen. Right now, the biggest container ship in the world is 24,000, what's called TEU, 20-foot equivalent units. So if you see a container going down the highway, that's like a 40-foot unit. So like two 20-foot units. So roughly about 12,000 of those. China unveiled a ship for 32,000 of those. And they're too big to go through the Suez Canal, but they don't need to go through the Suez now. They can go around Africa right now. And so they get made bigger ships. Ship is going to be 450 meters long. And if you're like an American like me, what the frick is a meter? It's roughly around 400 meters is about 1,300 feet. This is around 1,500 feet. It's a massive ship.
Someone just said, could highly capable submarines become common enough that in the world, the aircraft carriers might end up being too much of an investment? An aircraft carrier is sovereign American territory parked right off the coast of a country. And I'll tell you, the day an aircraft carrier becomes obsolete will be the day after the Air Force becomes obsolete. Because at least an aircraft carrier can move, right?
So I love subs. The big question is, what's the capital ship? Is it the battleship? Is it the dreadnought? Is it the aircraft? Is it the submarine? And the problem the submarine has is a finite amount of weapons on board. It really does. And a submarine operates by stealth. It's really not a visible thing. If you pop up, below the hatch and you show where you're at, kind of give away the one advantage you have. Aircraft carriers are meant to be, hey, we're big, we're imposing, we're off your coast, and we're 4.5 acres of, a big, huge deck off your coast.
Yeah, and when you think about it, like America has 11 aircraft carriers, and most countries don't have any.
No, French have the only nuclear aircraft carrier out there, Charles de Gaulle, and then everybody else maybe has. Well, China has 2, 3 if you count. Depends how you count them.
So the British have.
What's that?
So our bartender asked, how good are our aircraft carriers at detecting submarines?
So the aircraft carriers have the helicopters that can be used to detect submarines, but it's really the escort vessels that are really good at doing it. The problem is submarines have the ability to take out an aircraft carrier, and that's the fear that everybody has, is that a submarine can punch above its weight. It really can. And we saw that in World War II, where we saw American submarines take out Japanese aircraft carriers. And that's a big fear, is that Chinese submarines can take out American aircraft carriers.
Did you ever read Thunder Below?
Thunder Below.
So there's this book. It's called Thunder Below. I think it's by William Flecky or William Lucky or something like that.
He was he was a sub commander.
Dude, I don't know why that hasn't been made into a movie.
Oh God, yeah. You read some of those sub commanders in World War II. So my favorite sub commander is a guy by the name of Lawson Red Ramage. Red Ramage is, again, movie. It's like, how is this guy not in a movie? It's like he attacks a convoy, and it's just insane. It is insane what these guys do. Read about those World War II. There was a series done in the 1950s using old World War II submarines on TV where they reenacted the World War II missions. They were great. If you ever get an opportunity to see them, go see them. But when you read some of those sub-commanders in World War II, they're great. There's a podcast out there.
You.
Yeah, there you go. Thunder
Below. Yeah. By Admiral Flucky. Our bartender just helped us out.
She's great. She's going to be going regular on the channel now.
Yeah, right? So, Thunder Below by Eugene B. Flucky. I mean, it's a fascinating story. I think the guy did 4 cruises or voyages or whatever. And on one, he captured somebody. He captured a Japanese dude who he wasn't Japanese, but he was, I guess, pressed into service by the Japanese.
I think Flucky landed in Japan and actually
attacked. He attacked. He did an attack by putting a mine underneath a rail. Yeah, underneath the train car. It's freaking crazy.
So Lawson Red Ramage is one of my favorites because he became the commander of what becomes Military Seal Command, the commercial shipping firm for the U.S. Navy. And I did this history on the Merchant Marine in Vietnam, and Ramage was one of the commanders. And he was asked, what does a sub commander know about commercial shipping? He goes, I know how to destroy it. And because he did. He destroyed the Japanese Merchant Marine, and he was one of the best damn commanders. So if you get an opportunity, read those books. I mean, those guys were phenomenal in World War II. I think it's 52 subs sunk, and yet they sunk, they represented about 2% of the U.S. Navy, but they sunk. It's more than a third, I think, of the entire Japanese Merchant Marine and Navy. It's more than that, actually.
Before Flucky, the idea of submarines is to sit somewhere and then wait for the shipping to come by. And Flucky actually went out and found the bad guys and took the war to them.
They had 2 issues. Number one, they had these older commanders who were trained in fighting warships, not commercial ships. And then the second thing they had is the torpedoes sucked. The Type 13 torpedo was a disaster. It was. They tested it twice. One time it worked, one time it didn't, and the Bureau of Ordnance said, that's good, we're good, 50% success rate, all we need. So you sent off guys in World War II on submarines with torpedoes that, number one, didn't maintain their depth. They literally pendulated. So you had these torpedoes that were jumping depth. Number two, they were designed to detonate under the hull of the ship using magnetic influence. The problem was they only tested them off the coast of Newport, Rhode Island, where we're at right now. Magnetic readings are different on the planet because it's just a planet. It's different. So that they would shoot those torpedoes and they would blow up as soon as they left the torpedo tubes. They wouldn't work. And then the worst part was if they hit the ship even on the side, they didn't detonate. And actually, I should say one more. is sometimes those torpedoes would circular around, come back at you.
Huh.
And then
I
for
know.
2 years, American submarines operated with torpedoes that didn't work.
I think that was the thing with the Thresher, right? Someone said they had a hot running torpedo.
Scorpion was.
And like people didn't know what I read a book about that. It was like I can't remember the damn name of it. It'll come to me. Someone said, "Let's get weird. In the event of war with West Taiwan, China, how likely do you think merchant ships will get converted to military use, like in World War II? Container ships converted to flatbed drone carriers, something else?" I am a big
love your idea.
Yes, you go first. You go first.
So number one, I am all for this idea for the U.S. Navy to convert ships and use them. The problem is the Navy won't. The Admiralty doesn't like this idea for a variety of reasons because no one's going to walk the deck of the ship who's an admiral. They're just not. I can create you the most powerful warship on the planet. Give me an old container ship. I'll fill it out with VLS cells, and I can turn it into the most powerful weapon system you've ever seen. I can take an old offshore supply vessel and put VLS cells on it and multiply the capabilities of a Burke-class destroyer. It's like taking an A1
the Arsenal ships,
right? But it's like taking an M1 Abrams and surrounding it with Bradleys. It's like we can increase the lethality of this weapon very easily by doing it. The problem is the Navy doesn't like that idea because you're using commercial assets to do it. Meanwhile, the Chinese are doing the exact same thing. They're doing this element. They're actually using their maritime militia. They're using their commercial merchant marine in ways that we're not. And I think we need to adapt that. The problem the Navy has, and they keep saying this, is, well, we need to make these autonomous. We need to get the crews off them. And autonomy is we're never going to achieve that ring. We're never going to get to fully unmanned. We need to go ahead, put minimal crew on them, and put them out there.
Yeah, I am really hopeful about the containerized SM6 and containerized Tomahawk. I don't see why we can't just like we bolted a containerized SM6 onto a littoral combat ship, onto the rear end of the helicopter pad, right?
Dutch are
so you lose the helicopter, but it gives it some punch.
Dutch are doing it right now with these offshore vessels, and listen, I go down to the Gulf Coast right now and buy you half a dozen offshore vessels. They can do 20, 25 knots, and we can put VLS cells on them. We can put modular containers on them, and we can increase the capability of a ship tomorrow. We can do it tomorrow. Yeah. But again, you're dealing with the Navy and the Admiralty who doesn't like to change that. It's ingrained in them. They don't want to kind of create the change.
So what else we got here? We have someone who said, Ryan, are you working on any computer programming projects right now? Honestly, right now I am not. A lot of times I view software as like just something I have to do to accomplish a goal. I think the last big software project I did was I did a video about how to use vector maps and to discover videos that are similar. That way, like Twitter could say, like, "Hey, someone else did this video." So, yeah, that's probably my latest software project. But honestly, like I am committed to doing at least 4 videos a month for my advertisers. So, like, I like my whole life is content. Like, I have to make. Like years ago, they had the old commercial for Dunkin' Donuts. Time to make the donuts. Like for me, it's time to make the content. Like constantly making content. Someone said I'm a bore. May I just mention that we seek independence in that area, the CGH, mainly in the western, northern Cape provinces. Oh, like the Boers, like in South Africa. I got it. So, Sal, congrats on the 500,000 subs.
Oh, thank you very much. I listen. I'm a shadow of what Ryan does. I just noticed one comment here. Bob Elmandav everyone. So my favorite thing on my channel is I have a thing where we say Bob Elmandav. If you don't know, it's a strait between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. It's where we drink, and we're here doing that tonight. So cheers, everybody. And let me take a moment and thank Ryan's been very nice to host me on the channel, but more importantly, he has mentioned me before, so I appreciate that. But I think it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great day getting together and knowing each other.
Yeah, what's really amazing. I'm probably gonna do a video about this. It's the amount of people who showed up for this conference,
Wow.
experts in fields like the world's foremost expert in autonomous underwater unmanned submarines, civilian submarines in China. Like, that's a thing? Apparently it is.
I was discussing. When discussing is somebody who reads papers and then like comments on them. To give you an idea, I read papers on the Chinese Coast Guard. I read paper on the Chinese Army's watercraft program, Chinese Merchant Marine, Chinese deep sea surveillance, and Chinese polar. And it was incredible. I mean, like you read this stuff, it's like, wow. It's like it is an incredible depth of knowledge we have on knowing these elements. I know we're very critical of the government all the time, and it's very easy to make these comments. But it was such a niche little group that's watching the Chinese and what they do. And we were before you showed up to get me tonight. So Ryan picked me up. We had dinner tonight. But before he picked me up, I was sitting there with a batch of people who were in there. Like, oh yeah, we come to these conferences a lot. And it's like this is the group that really monitors China and what they do. It was a very, and let me be clear, a very impressive group.
Yeah, I was actually very impressed with everyone involved. And this is the first conference that I've been to regarding this topic. Normally I'm asked to speak, but I wasn't asked to speak this way, I guess. It's like it's a trial period. I actually suggested, like, I can do gray zone stuff, China's gray zone tactics, but that's a different
Get right
topic.
in the audience in this one, everybody.
Yeah, someone said, will the U.S. lose Diego Garcia? What are the large costs involved?
It's an interesting question. I mean, that has to deal with Mauritius, it has to do with the UK and their government. Diego Garcia is really important. I mean, it's important for a variety of reasons. However, I will say this. If you look at the recent campaign against the Houthis, it was a staging base. We had 6 B-2s, a couple of B-52s in there. And, back in the day, we had a massive fleet of pre-positioning ships that were preloaded with gear out there. They've pretty much gone away. We don't see those too much anymore. But Diego Garcia is a massive strategic base. I'll give you a little insight here. When we sent the B-2s and the B-52s into Diego Garcia, we brought a ship out of Korea that nobody tracked that is preloaded with Air Force ammunition. We have like 2 of them out in the ocean. I tracked it. And it came in. And so we were able to stage B-52s, B-2s out of there. And that gives us a huge strategic advantage. Diego Garcia are really important to keep. And I've been to Diego Garcia. It's an interesting place to be. Don't jump in the water. You'll get eaten by sharks. There's sharks right in the water right there. Although one of the best little bars in the world is right there at the beach.
Wow.
It's great. It's a great, fantastic.
I have never been to Diego Garcia. Yeah, everything he said is right. I mean, Diego Garcia was used in basically every Gulf conflict since Operation Desert Storm. We based B-52s out of there, because you can if you base aircraft at Diego Garcia, you can do 2 sorties a day. 2 sorties a day. I can't say that word right. Sortie.
Sorties.
Sortie. I'm from Jersey. English isn't my first language.
I'm from New York. Don't ask me. Don't ask me. But I mean, if you look at Diego Garcia, right smack dab, not only is it smack dab in the ocean, it's right astride the supply chain coming from the Malacca Straits to the Gulf to Cape of Good Hope. I mean, it's really, really key. It's an amazing little place. It's an interesting little spot on the ocean.
What else we got? I'm almost done my cigar. I'll probably be done soon. Are there any more, Darren? Are there any more sanctions that have not already been levied on the DPRK?
Ooh,
I don't know.
I mean, I do question the amount of sanctions we put against countries, not just North Korea, but Iran, Venezuela, Russia. At the point you have to sit there and question about when do they become negative? Because for example, one of the things I talk about on my channel is when we levied the oil and price cap on the Russians, we created the dark fleet. If you're unfamiliar with the dark fleet it's sometimes called the shadow fleet, the gray fleet. We created this parallel merchant marine fleet. And, we've done this with the Iranians, with the Venezuelans, but the Russians are a big difference. I mean, they were different. They're a massive group, and Russians export a lot of oil. And once the G7 and the EU sat there and said, listen, if you carry oil that's over $60 a barrel, you can't insure it. Well, we're going to go find places that insure us. And, it's the young, E4 down at Fayetteville who been drunk driving 3 times. He's going to find insurance. It's going to be really, really expensive. I don't know why he's laughing right now because he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
No, you do. Because they're going to find the insurance that's going to fund them. And that's what happens. And, the problem is we drive ourselves into these scenarios. And we have to realize that when you force shipping in that way, they're going to do it. And that's what we saw with the Estonians, where they had a ship running around with no flag on it. It creates a problem because if that ship has an accident, has a spill, who's responsible to clean it up? There's no one at the end of it. And that's the problem we have.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's me on my high horse.
No, someone said, what's the potential of the Northern Passage mean for shipping? That's why we want Greenland.
That's a really interesting one because the Russians just had the largest shipments across the Northern Sea Route. They have tried to make that profitable, like nonstop. Because it's a shorter distance. If you go from Shanghai to Rotterdam, the shortest distance between Shanghai and Rotterdam is through the Bering Sea, across the Arctic, into that way. It's the shortest way. You've got to deal with ice, but that's the only problem. But that's why the conference we were at today, the paper I read, talking about Chinese icebreakers, getting up into that area. It's a big area for the Russians to exploit. And they are. They're sending ships through that route right now.
So someone said, Ryan, from an intel perspective, do you think you guys have concerns with the lack of polar access the United States has, the lack of available ships? I mean, I think we have 2 icebreakers.
One.
One.
We're down the Polar Sea. Polar Star has been stripped to keep Polar Sea. Understand, we didn't need polar icebreakers. We didn't need what's called heavy icebreakers. Not to bore you, there's 7 levels of icebreakers. We didn't need class 7 icebreakers. What we needed was an icebreaker to get us down to McMurdo Station down in Antarctica. Did that run? Fantastic. If you ever want to know what it's like to be in the Arctic, go put your head in the freezer. That's it. That's exactly what it is. And penguins. Run penguins around. That's about it. But we created a pipeline from the North Slope to Valdez. We didn't need it. But now we're pulling LNG, liquefied natural gas, out of the Northern Slope. So now we need icebreakers. We need to go up there. So now we're talking about building icebreakers. And we're teaming with the Finns to create this. I think it's going to be an interesting next evolution. We really need to start talking about how we can use the northern shore of Alaska to generate wealth. There's a lot of money to be had coming out of there in terms of liquefied natural gas, oil. Most of the oil comes through the pipeline down to Valdez. But again, it's an area of development that we need to be looking at.
Someone said, when are you going to stop picking on the Watertown girls? Never.
Never.
If you're at 10th Mountain, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The
guys up in Fort Drum.
The guys up at Fort Drum. Maybe it changed. I don't know. It's been like 20. Oh my God.
Do you think it's changed?
30 years.
Do you think it's changed?
I've been told Watertown has changed. Like they have like nice restaurants there. It used to be like there's a Dairy Queen.
Right now, any change in Watertown? Listen, can't be clear. Shipping towns don't change. Yeah. I'm going to say that Army towns don't change. Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is a Marine Corps town, has not changed in 50 years.
Fayetteville.
Oh, Vietnam is not changed.
Vietnam, yeah, Vietnam. They have a phone or a laptop set up for the stream. No, I just have my laptop set up, working off Wi-Fi. I'm actually
There's no call-in for this show. We don't want you to call in because God knows what could happen.
Yeah, I'm at 13% power, so I'm going to cut this off soon.
Not his computer, just him. He's literally.
Luckily, I'm driving tonight because I'm a professional alcoholic and Sal's an amateur. So
amateur. Can you clear? I'm a merchant mariner. I'm a merchant mariner who's fine.
Thank you for this stream. It's a good way to pass my evening by. Oh, thank you so much, man.
I'm sorry you passed your night this way.
I had no idea I was going to do it. I always carried my laptop in my backpack. I happen to have my backpack in my car, my rental car, because I went to the thing today, and I never took it out when I went to the thing, when I went to the hotel. So I just happened to have my laptop. This was not planned.
So what if we had dinner tonight? We had a great dinner. I watched Ryan eat a lobster for the first time, so that was fun. I wish I could have recorded that for everybody.
I've had lobster before, but I've never had to crack it open and all that. And I'm like, what part do I eat? Like, I'm from Maryland, right? I know how to eat a crab.
It was not pretty, everybody.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
But then Ryan invited me to the bar. And again, I don't smoke, but I drink. I'm fine with it. And then hey, let's do a live stream. And we did a live stream. So here we are.
Yeah. What else we got here? In the Cape, are there essentially Oh, someone's talking about the Boers. One thinks America will sell us equipment. The other thinks Russia. I don't know. Unfortunately, the Boers, that is just not something
Why are
I'm
we
that.
talking about boars?
I guess like South Africa,
Okay.
because like the U.S. offered South Africans citizenship into the U.S.
Okay.
Something like that. Are you keeping your M17 with everything going with 6 hour? I love my M17. I have two SIGs, one
I love my
M17.
SIG. I love my 6 hour.
You have a SIG?
I gotta say,
What SIG do you have?
the what's the pistol one? Not the P.
P226?
226. 226.
Well,
Great
it'd be-
little pistol. Get
it's
me
a great
clear. Great
pistol.
little, I live in North Carolina where you have to have a gun. So you have to have one. So I've got my requisite shotgun. I've got my Beretta M9 because I grew up with the Beretta M9. I'm so used to having that gun. It's like, to me, it's second nature, that gun. My wife has got a little revolver, but then we went for the SIG, and the SIG was a beautiful gun. It is a really good. I told my son how to shoot with that gun. I got a 16-year-old son. Went out, got a nice laser sight on it, and I'm fortunate. I live on a nice, big, huge piece of land. Went out to the backyard. He loves to go shoot with that.
I have, I think, 5 guns. I have my SIG P226, or my SIG P365, which is my carry gun.
Right.
I have a Kel-Tec, which is my old carry gun.
Oh, yeah.
I have my M17, which, I went on TV in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
like the news, and they asked me to take the gun off
From
of my,
behind you?
yeah, from behind me.
Wow,
They said
really?
to remove the gun to go on TV. Like, whatever.
I'm in North Carolina. We got guns everywhere. So
I have a
it's
clay
like,
gun, a CZ clay gun, and I have a Ruger Mini, not a Mini 14, a 1020.
I got my shotgun too. I got my pump shotgun, my Remington, so which I always loved. So, but I live on land, so I can go out in the backyard and shoot all the time.
That's crazy. Like, years ago, I dated a girl who lived in Minnesota, and like one morning, I woke up and I heard this, ba-gong, ba-gong. I'm like, what the hell? I went downstairs, and she was drinking her morning coffee and shooting her Mini 14 at a gong 100 yards away. She would drink her coffee. Gong.
So I live in North Carolina. I'm on 15 acres. I got about 100 acres behind me. And so, like, I have a shooting range set up in behind the house, so my son will go out and shoot. Got him a bow a long time ago, regular single one, and then a compound. And then I've got the shotgun, so that we'll go out and shoot. And then, like, during duck season, deer season, it's like the shooting range out back behind my house. I'm not a hunter myself. I don't hunt, but everybody else does around me.
To me, hunting is going to Wegmans. Like, that's hunting. Like, all right, guys, I'm done my cigar.
He's done.
So, hey, thanks for everyone for showing up for the stream. Go to What's Going On with Shipping if you want to watch more information about what is going on with shipping with Sal Matergliano.
That's terrible. It's not even close to what
Sal Matergliano?
Mercogliano.
You need to square that name away.
Hey, but before we go, hang on a second.
Go to Breakwater Cigar
We're
we're at Middletown, Rhode Island. Thank you guys so much for coming to the stream. That was fun.
I can't believe you